Hello, how are you? Edgar Fernandez from Sufficient Limited, located in Brantford, Ontario, Canada. Well, yesterday came a Twitter across to my account from Global Pharma that says that according to the CBC Edmonton, yesterday a worker actually dies after inhaling walnut powder or dust. Um, Apparently, this worker was allergic to the walnuts. So that was the reason why, well, there was an allergic reaction, and then unfortunately he passed away yesterday. So therefore, it's very important to have or implement your respiratory protection program. And actually, it's not only the respiratory protection program. The right name actually is, and I have an article from the American Institute of Chemical Engineers. They say the 10 steps to protect workers against airborne hazards. That's the right program. It's not only respiratory protection. Many times um, we only focus on respiratory protection programs to choose the right respirator, the fit testing, etc. But really, we don't focus on this type of programs. That is a complete program that involves respiratory protection and other things. So the 10 steps that the magazine describes is chemical the chemical engineering progress October magazine. So they describe 10 steps, and actually to give you and actually this article gave us a brief um, uh, history about it. Well, in the United States, they said about 5 million workers or nearly 1.3 million job sites in the United States are required to wear respiratory protection. So it's a lot of people. And could be to protect people against atmospheres that are deficient in oxygen, or people that are exposed to fume, dust, smokes, mist, gases, vapor, sprays. So that the reason why that's those and those fumes or those mist, they can be dangerous. They can be airborne hazards. So so what is the 10 steps that this program requires? The first one is you need to perform a hazard assessment. So you need to identify what is the airborne. You need to have the SDSs to have the general information of that particular chemical. Most of the now the SDSs with the new global harmonized system, so requires to assess the hazard, and then comes with prevention measurements that they are called P, and the hazards they are called H, and they have different numbers and different letters. So that's now mandatory in the United States. In Canada, it's until actually the government extended the due date is going to be December 1st, 2018. But that's the new information that needs to be on the SDSs and according to the GHS. But not also that. You need to assess what type of engineering measures you have. In the process safety, we call safeguards. I tried, and actually, no, I used process safety concepts and methodologies in the health and safety. In my personal opinion, I have found that it's most effective to do a hazard assessment. I have in the past and still in current days, I'm seeing that people only discuss GSAs, what is a hazard, what is a risk, and really we can spend time discussing that. But for me, I apply the concepts from process safety to health and safety to do a process hazard analysis they call PHAs, that they call causes, consequences, safeguards, risk ranking, and then action items, and then before and during the implementation and after implementation. That's the hazard requires to do a process hazard analysis, and has worked for me. So first you need to do that, and that includes a lot of information, and they call process safety information about your operation. Could be ventilation, could be what type of process is involved, what generates that dust, that mist, in what type of concentration, and then you measure the causes, the causes and consequences, and then what type of safeguards you have. It's not only PPE. It's you remember you need to do elimination, substitution, engineering measures, administrative, and at the end PPE. The second step that they say here in the magazine, I have it in front of me, is categorize employees into the similar exposure groups. That's the second step. So examine all possible scenarios and workers who might be impacted for each contaminant. And this is the case for this unfortunate news that was communicated yesterday. So that should be part of your hazard assessment. So your process hazard assessment or hazard assessment. Like I said, I use process hazard assessment methodologies. For me, it works better. And that's the thing that you need to think about it. The third step is monitor exposure. So you need to have a plan to measure at least once a year, or depending on or how much you are exceeding the occupational exposure limit, and then you need to realize that plan with your industrial hygienist specialist. So that's gonna be you're gonna be able to identify situations or processes that they are exposing workers to unacceptable exposure limits, or they are above the exposure limits. So you should have a monitor exposure plan. So how you gonna measure that? So the American Industrial Hygiene Association, the AIHA website, they have a lot of information about it, and the OSHA.gov as well. The third step, no, that's actually always the third step. The fourth step is implement exposure controls. Remember what I mentioned is you need to eliminate, substitute, or engineer the process, and then also develop procedures, and at the end PPE. That's the way that you're going to implement exposure controls. It could be ventilation, so you need to develop your ventilation program. Since engineering, how you're going to design according to the standards, and then how you're going to maintain your body ventilation program, how you're going to measure it. Fume hoods, for example, at the lab, how you're going to control the exposure at the process, at the work, on the production line. All those types of things, they need to be assessed as well, and it needs to be included on the hazard analysis. The fifth now, it comes to select the proper respiratory protection. So that you include the standard, the CSA standard in Canada, and the OSHA the regulation as well, and NIOSH that describe what type of respirators you need to have, or they are in the market, and what you're going to provide, and how you're going to measure, how you're going to conduct the fit test. There are qualitative and quantitative. How you can get that training. Talk to your supplier, or talk to a specialist on a safety consultant, and then they can do they can train your people in respiratory protection. You need to have a very detailed plan on how you're gonna select the respirator, and then how and who's gonna use it. And that's the reason why in step 2 says that you need to have categorize employees into similar exposure groups. So not everybody can use can wear a respirator. You need to have a medical examination if that specific person can wear a respirator. None of them, they are some claustrophobic, so they can use it. They have high blood pressure or some type of heart disease illnesses. So you need to be aware. You need to send those guys, or those people to the doctor and have a release that they can wear a respirator. The number 6 is conduct medical evaluations. So that's the thing. Who's allergic, who's not, and then who can wear a respirator or not. And actually, who's gonna conduct that? Well, there are occupational doctors, or that they can do that job. Actually, in Canada, each province, you can talk to the Minister of Labor or the Workers' Compensation and see whose doctors are approved to do this type of job. The number 7 is perform the fit testing. We talk about it should be part of your respiratory protection program that is inside of the Airborne Hazardous program, protection program. So it's, as you can see, it's very comprehensive. Before these type of programs, also they were well known as a chemical hygiene program. So you have certain chemicals and on your facility. Some you include the same that they are in the process, and then you need to develop SDSs and respiratory protection, ventilation, etc. So you need to check the in the United States there is a OSHA standard regarding on chemical safety programs. The number 8 is training and use. This is very important. So people need to be trained in respiratory protection. How they're gonna wear the respirator, how they're gonna clean it, how they're gonna keep it, because they many times I have found that the respirators are all over the place, not inside of a plastic bag that always come from the vendor. Some companies they decided to use a suitcases, so they put it inside. And also you need to have a log of the cartridge. So when they start using it, and if how it's gonna be the expiry date. Some of those they said, okay, according to your measurements, because now you need to have this type of implement the exposure controls and monitor exposure, and then you're gonna see according to the information of the respirators and the cartridge, excuse me, you need to determine when you're gonna change it. Some of the cartridges instructions they say every 30 days, or depending on the exposure that you have. So that's when you're gonna determine the life of those cartridges. So consult your industrial hygiene or any safety consultant that is specializing, or industrial hygienist that is specialized on that. The number 9 is inspection and maintenance. So you need to, a part of the training, you need to you need to teach the workers how to perform an inspection of the respirator before wearing it. How you're gonna perform the positive or the negative test. But also you as a safety professional or as a professional engineer or industrial hygienist, you need to conduct your own inspection. So you're gonna determine is once a month, every quarter. You need to inspect the respirator that are keeping in the right way according to the standard or regulation. Inside of a plastic bag, they have the dates of the cartridge. They have the dates that they're starting using these filters, and the states of those respirators, and the housekeeping as well. And the number 10 is the program evaluation. So program management is an ongoing responsibility. You need to see how the workers are wearing this respirator, if they are understanding the information that they have, that you guys have provided, and the findings during inspections of the equipment and during your walk-arounds on the facility or the job site. And you need to see, evaluate how this program has been followed. So you can have parameters or key performance indicators or checklists, and then that should be part of your program evaluation. And actually, it was a good article. I was reading that. It's very extensive, but also that means that you need to go to your industrial hygienist and see the occupational exposure limits, NIOSH, for example, as well, ventilation measurements, process hazard analysis, all that. So it's a very complete program that you need to implement. And that's the reason why these type of incidents, I don't know why, I'm suspecting, but instead of suspecting, follow these 10 steps that I'm telling you from this article from the American Institute of Chemical Engineers on the monthly chemical engineering progress magazine October issue. So they have good information. And check out and review your Airbone Hazardous program, and also your respiratory protection program that should be inside of this program. So those were the 10 steps that you need to follow if you have a very comprehensive and very effective airborne hazard management program. Thank you very much. Have an excellent day. See you next time. Bye.